So this is our alternate class on the great master, the biography of Sri Ramakrishna by his monastic disciple, Swami Shardanand. And as we discuss every time the importance of discussing the biography along with the teachings as they appear in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because always the life can be understood better or the teachings of a prophet or incarnation can be understood better if we know the life of that personality or of that avatar, because they tally with each other and they are so intimately connected with each other. Very often we find that the message that normal human beings convey to others is not uh, in a way in harmony with their own life. The message or the teachings of philosophers very often do not reflect the life that they lead. But that is not the case in the case of saints, prophets, and incarnations. Because whatever they say they live, and whatever their life is, and their experiences are, especially when it comes to spiritual experiences, they speak out what they have experienced themselves. What it's not that they intellectually try to convince others of the philosophy that they believe in or they live by, but they are personification of the teachings that they give out to the world. So, in other words, they live the life, they live the life they preach. So, Sri Ramakrishna, as we discussed, we were discussing his childhood or his early youth when he was forced to come to Calcutta through Dakshineshwar with his elder brother Ramkumar, who was, of course, by divine circumstances appointed as the pujari or the pujari of the Dakshineshwar temple. And he thought, I mean, Ramkumar thought, being an elder brother, and Sri Ramakrishna was fatherless, he had lost his father at a very young age, Shudiram Chattopadhyay. So his elder brother felt, since Sri Ramakrishna was not interested, Gadadhar, as his name, as he was known in those days, was not interested in going to school. In fact, Swami Vivekananda says there's a special reason why he discarded all forms of external learning. That is a different issue. But quite unknown to Ramkumar, his elder brother, who was much older in age than Sri Ramakrishna, he was worried about how he would earn a living when he grew up. In childhood, he refused to go to school or engage in any kind of formal learning. But even after coming to Calcutta, where he thought, he, if you remember, we discussed that Ramkumar had started a school to train young youth in some kind of priestcraft, because that is how Brahmins earned a living in those days. It was a very orthodox society. And in every house, especially if somebody was very rich and prosperous, they had a very big shrine, separate shrine in their house, in their palatial house, which was dedicated. It was almost like a family shrine. And the worship that was being done, of course, the house owners, the main head of that house would do some kind of worship, but the formal worship was done by Brahmins, very often done by Brahmins. So they used to have a lot of priests coming to their house, these houses, The formal worship was done by priests, and to especially in the modern age, because of Western education, it was very difficult to get traditionally trained priests because most of the young people started flocking to the centers to get Western education. And slowly, the system of education, which was evolved for centuries in India, was slowly being replaced by a modern Western education, which was more of an examination system rather than a true education system. But anyway, whatever may be the merits and demerits, uh, it was very difficult for these rich houses or these big houses to get priests. So, starting a traditional toll where not only Sanskrit but all the Shastras are taught, basic Shastras, and also ritualistic worship was taught to young men who would later on uh, find some self-employment by doing pujas in different houses. So naturally, this, though it was not very successful, Ramkumar thought that if he learns some rituals, then after his passing away, Sri Ramakrishna, when he grows up, will find some kind of employment to earn a living, not knowing what the future that was in store for his younger brother. So, uh, that toll or that school which he started, he taught a lot of children, of course, for a fee. And he also simultaneously, because that he could not uh, make the ends meet, he had a lot of expenses. Though Mathur Babu, the son-in-law of Rani Rasmani, gave a very handsome salary as the chief priest of the Dakshineshwar temple, but that was not enough to supplement to run the school, the small school that he ran. And with whatever little income he got, he managed to send some money to Kamarpukur because he was the only sole earning member, and his younger brother Rameshwar was also not earning so much. So he used to support the house in Kamarpukur and also his youngest brother, that is Ramakrishna Gadadhar, and he expected him to help him with his daily tasks. So after about a month, we all know the background. Sri Ramakrishna came, but he was very orthodox. So he decided not to take food. The orthodoxy was so much. You see, in the beginning, Sri Ramakrishna did not come to break any orthodox rules. Swami Vivekananda was very clear when he said that it was not out of any kind of fanatic orthodoxy that he refused to take food in the Dakshineshwar temple because he was not sure who was cooking the food. And according to the tradition in those days, people who belong to high caste, especially Brahmin families, they would rather cook their own food than eat from the hands of others because they would not uh, take the chance. And they felt that the person who cooks the food, his nature and his, especially the cleanliness that is associated with the higher caste, the purity with which food is cooked, and all those things, there were several factors. The point is not that we should discuss the merits and demerits of that kind of untouchability, but Sri Ramakrishna in the beginning, till he outgrew the need of eating from from people who had a reputation, a good character, he preferred to get his provisions, rice and other things, and he cooked his own food. He was staying with Ram Kumar, of course, but unlike Ram Kumar, who was a little liberal, Sri Ramakrishna initially was seen to be very orthodox. He preferred to cook his own food, whatever may be the motive. But seeing his strong adherence to this orthodoxy, Mathura Babu somehow respected him a lot. Though he was not very active, he was not even keen to take up any job. Though Mathur Babu thought that if Ramkumar, he assisted Ramkumar, he could give him a small salary, which obviously was not acceptable to Sri Ramakrishna. He would not do anything as a job. So he, though he wanted Sri Ramakrishna to come and help his elder brother, because the workload was too much, looking after such a big temple. So at least he said, "You come and help your brother." And his brother also requested him, elder brother Ram Kumar requested him to come and help him dressing Mother Kali, because every day, as you know, they change the dress, they change the ornaments, everything is cleaned, and again uh, the dress has to be changed every day. So it involves a lot of work, except it's not just puja that the priest has to do, he has to do all these things. So somehow Mathur managed to not manage to, tried to convince Sri Ramakrishna that you help your brother. He knew that he would not come and accept employment so easily. And he did not press him further. When Sri Ramakrishna said, I can't do all these things, I can't handle the jewelry, because his worship, you will notice, even after he accepts, after the passing away of his elder brother, he was literally forced to take up the employment of the priest. The first condition that he put was that his nephew Hriday, about whom we'll discuss now, he said if Hriday takes care of the jewelry and the clothes and all the other paraphernalia, he agreed to worship Mother Kali without any sense of responsibility. He didn't want to be bound by all these ritualistic demands. You know, there are so many things. People go on adding jewelry and costly things. So he was worried that if I put my mind, if I uh, engage my attention in looking after the jewels, then I can't have devotion for Mother Kali. He just wanted to worship the way he wanted to, with a free mind, without any sense of responsibility. So even Mathur Babu agreed to that. He said, I can take the job of worshipping Mother Kali if Ridu, his name was Hriday Ram, said if Ridu agrees to take care of the jewels and other things, he has to be safeguarding all those things. Then I will do, he agreed to do puja. And we all know what a wonderful worship he did. So Mathur Babu knew about his uh, inherent vairagya for all these ritualistic things, especially the jewels and other things, which most of the people thought was the best way to worship one's deity. The more costlier the jewelry, they felt elated at the prospect of offering such costly things. Whereas Sri Ramakrishna once even scolded Mathur Babu when some of the jewelry of the Radhakanta temple was stolen. And then Mathur was terribly angry, not only with the priests and other people, but he was angry. He said, what kind of God? He went and started complaining to the Lord himself. And he said, oh, you are so all powerful and you cannot even uh, protect your own jewels. So hearing that, Sri Ramakrishna overheard that and then came and just shouted at Mathur. He said, what a foolish statement you are making. These jewels may be very precious to you because you are a worldly person. But do you think the creator of this universe has any value for these stupid little jewels? It has absolutely no meaning, and the prayer or the anguish that you are expressing is unjustified. What are all those jewels, no matter how costly they are, to the Lord of the universe, to the Mother of the universe? So, Mathur Babu now and then used to get some admonition from Sri Ramakrishna, who was so outspoken that he did not, all other priests were afraid of the owners of this temple, especially Rani Rasmani and Mathur Babu. But Sri Ramakrishna was not afraid to speak his mind, speak out whatever he felt. Whatever he felt was true. So now, during this period, when he was still hesitating to accept the job of helping Ram Kumar, and Mathur Babu's intention was to help this family financially, especially he knew they were undergoing a lot of suffering. He had to feed his entire family in Kamarpukur as well. He had to look after his school. So his intention was very noble, but somehow he could not convince Sri Ramakrishna to assist his brother. At least till he was alive. So now, during this period, as we see, as I told you, his Sri Ramakrishna's nephew came there. He played a very important role in Sri Ramakrishna's life. He was intimately connected. Today, whatever facts that we know, especially about Sri Ramakrishna's childhood, the first part of this book, as you all know, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasang, or the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, or the great master as the English translation is known, was written in 5 volumes, independent volumes. They were initially written as articles, different chapters. And strangely, Swami Sharadananda began with the third part of the book. Normally, you start with childhood and his youth, youth, and then you go to the sadhana period and then the final days of Sri Ramakrishna. But he started with the sadhak bhava, which is the period of sadhana, because many of the incidents of or many of the events of his sadhana days, Sri Ramakrishna used to now and then discuss with his disciples. We rarely discussed the childhood days. So the only source of information, of course, some now and then he would just mention some things about his Kamarpukur days and also Dakshineshwar when he came as a young priest. So Sri Ramakrishna, or as a young, all those things he used to later on relate when he was. Uh, so that Guru Bhav means Sri Ramakrishna as the Guru, part one, and Sri Ramakrishna as the Guru of all his disciples. There are two distinct volumes, part 3 and part 4, which were written first. Because Swami Shardanand many people were alive who were associated with Sri Ramakrishna at a later age. Most of the disciples came after he finished his, or when he was, after he finished his sadhana period. So the part 3 and part 4 were written first. And in writing volume 1, it took a lot of time because Swami Shardanand was not present. And anything that he wrote about Sri Ramakrishna, he would verify it twice, thrice, and if he was convinced that this incident really took place, then only he would record it. So that's why it's a very, very authentic biography of Sri Ramakrishna. And he used to interview several people, ask different people, and get different versions, and then try to find out which version was exact. So, Hriday Ram, his nephew, was the only person who could give a lot of information, not only about, of course, about his childhood. He had to go to Kamarpukur and meet some people who were very elderly and who had seen Sri Ramakrishna as a child. So there were quite a few people in Kamarpukur. But as far as his sadhana period is concerned, when he was living in Dakshineshwar, the information that was given by Hriday was very invaluable because he was very close. So Hriday Ram uh, was just 16 years old, a very young nephew of Sri Ramakrishna, of master's cousin sister, Hemangini. And his name was Hriday Ram Mukhopadhyay. And Hriday actually had gone to Burdwan. Burdwan is one part of Bengal. So from Kamarpukur, from Shihor, which was his birthplace, Shihor is near Kamarpukur and Jairambati. So he went to Burdwan in search of a job because, as I said, it was very difficult for the priestly class because of the change in culture, the cultural invasion, because of the foreign uh, invasion. The first was the Mughal invasion. Slowly, our temples and other institutions were damaged or destroyed. Then the British came and ruled for about 200 years. So slowly, the old tradition, where priests could earn a living in the rural areas, became more and more difficult. So they had to go in search for jobs in bigger towns. Burdwan was a big town, so it was difficult for him to do earn money in Kamarpukur. So Hridayram in Shihor. So he he had gone to Burdwan in search of a job. So Hriday stayed there with some people of his own village who, like him, had gone in search of different types of jobs. But he was not successful. So when he heard that Sri Ramakrishna or has been engaged to help his elder brother Ram Kumar, and later on he got that job, he thought he might. Uh, his maternal uncles were engaged in the very rich Dakshineshwar temple. So he thought if he lived with his uncles, he might get some kind of job. So Sri Krishna, but the age difference was not much, though he was a nephew, he was a sister's son, because Sri Krishna was born very late. He was so his elder brother Ram Kumar was almost a young man when Sri Krishna was born. So Hemangini's son Hriday was not very young compared to, they were almost of the same age, though he was his nephew. And he served his uncle very well. We'll see that. So though he knew him since childhood, he was not in touch. It was not so easy for people, though they lived not very far from each other, to meet each other. It was only on rare occasions they would meet. Hriday was very tall. If you see the picture, there is only one picture where Sri Krishna and Hriday are together. You can see he was as tall as Sri Krishna, or even taller than him. He is holding him in Keshav Chandra Sen's house. So he was not only tall, he was very strong. And his mind was very energetic and fearless. Though he was not educated, but still he was very worldly wise. And he mixed well with others. He was very energetic, he was fearless, and he could he was a hard worker. So, and he had a wonderful sense of judgment. That is one thing which helped him to serve Sri Krishna when he was attacked by jealous people. You know, in the whole, if you see the early days of Sri Krishna, he was so engaged with the worship of the Divine Mother, and he had no time for anything else, and he was not calculative also. So it was only because of the resourcefulness and uh, the judgment that Hriday had, who protected him in the initial stages, because he was so much devoted to the mother, he would not take care of his. He would have found it very difficult to uh, manage his other affairs, worldly affairs, if Hriday was not there. So that was his main role in the drama, divine drama of Sri Ramakrishna's early days. So it is his resourcefulness which helped him, though his motive was different. His motive was to earn money. He thought so many rich people and so many prominent people used to come to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was not bothered about whether they were rich or poor or their place in life. He was not even bothered to bothered about that. But Hriday would always be asking him, pestering Sri Ramakrishna to get some favors from these people, which Sri Ramakrishna would never do. And he would not even, he would refuse any money which sometimes rich devotees would offer him. So he knew that. But Hriday kept on hoping that he uh, could earn some money. That was his only fault. He was not helping Sri Ramakrishna, though he felt it was his responsibility. And because of that, only Sri Ram, he could take so much of good care. And his love for his young uncle was genuine. He never hesitated to undergo any kind of physical suffering to make the master happy. So it was a strange sort of combination. Though his intention was very worldly, was primarily in Dakshineshwar to make money, to be prosperous, because like most others, money was the only goal of his life. And because of that, he had to suffer also. Later on, he was dismissed from his job. But by that time, Sri Ramakrishna was in his last days. I mean, he had done his job. It was during his sadhana days when Sri Ramakrishna was undergoing a lot of spiritual practices, when he could not take care of himself. It was at that critical juncture in Sri Ramakrishna's life that Hridayaram came and served him. But after his job was done, because of his mistakes and his extrovert nature, always seeking money and other things, in though he served his uncle so well. Definitely, he was a great soul, but unfortunately, the attraction of money was too much, and the attraction for dominating other people and the love for power that he had, somehow that was the cause of his downfall, and ultimately it was Mathur's son-in-law. Mathur Babu passed away. After that, his son-in-law, Trailokyanath, was forced to remove him from employment. He was employed by the Dakshineshwar temple, but he had to leave because of his selfish desires. So, though he was constantly active, very devoted to the uncle, but he was not emotional. He was not emotionally attached. He did everything with a strong sense of, uh, I mean, resourcefulness, or he was very practical, very pragmatic, and though he was very efficient, unfortunately, as I said, he was not free from selfish desires. The desire for money was also lurking, desire for name and fame. So the more we discuss this relationship of Sri Ramakrishna, on one side, a man full of vairagya and so much devoted to the Divine Mother, not caring for anything in the world. On one side, we see the uncle, and at the other side is a nephew who's very devoted in serving this uh, great incarnation of God, such a uh, unworldly person, and trying his best to convince Sri Ramakrishna to be a little practical, to accept some money. But it, it shows the contrast. The contrast is very important because on one side, we will find somebody who is representing uh, the representing people whose only goal in life is to make money, and on the other side there is a saint who for whom money is nothing. So these two contrasting personalities coming together and still having a very good relationship, it shows how uh, spirituality can transform a person. And the more we see, more we, Swami Shardamji says, the more we study the relationship of these two quite distinct personalities, you will find that how association of a even a worldly person somehow transformed him at the end. If you see the, especially if you see the last days of Hriday Ram, with all his worldliness, his constant companionship and the service with which he the spirit of service with which he served Sri Ramakrishna ultimately resulted in his spiritual welfare. That is what Swami Shardanand wants to point out. As I told you, it is not just a biography. When he depicts these characters, all the people who came and helped directly or indirectly Sri Ramakrishna, or who were involved in the divine drama of the Master, including Girish Ghosh, who was by no means a spiritual aspirant. He was a very worldly type of person with all evil tendencies. How that person got transformed. So, Swami Vivekananda once told Sardananji when he was writing the biography, don't bother about the small little miracles, even if they have taken place. They are not important in a biography. They are nothing compared to the transformation that takes place because changing a person, changing his samskaras, basic samskaras, and converting him to a new person, like what happened in the case of Girish Chandra Ghosh, and also Hridaya and many such people, is the greatest miracle according to Swami Vivekananda because it's easy to materialize things, easy to perform these miracles in the world. But he said it is difficult. Even the prophets of the past uh, were well known for the miracles that they performed, which was thought to be a very great achievement. But Swami Vivekananda wanted to emphasize that it's easier to do these miracles. These powers are very well known in the in the sadhana of yoga. The yoga mentions all these powers as a result of samyama. In fact, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you will find the different samyamas which lead to different powers, different miraculous powers human beings or sadhakas can develop. But at the same time, Patanjali warns because that will detract you from the goal. So Swami Vivekananda had advised Swami Shardananji, if at all you want to uh, show how Sri Ramakrishna in a miraculous way transformed people, then show how he changed the tendencies or samskaras of people, deep-rooted tendency, deep-rooted selfish desires, how they were slowly transformed. It is so difficult to change the nature because we come with a baggage of our past karmas, past samskaras of several lives. You can't just change a person or his nature. Though they say that one's future is 50% nature and 50% nurture. Nurture is how you train a person and train his habits so that he becomes a better person. Whereas nature is something he is born with. So if somebody is born with a particular nature, it's only 50%, there's only a 50% chance that you can change him. Whereas for some people, they come apparently, they have such a nice backlog of good samskaras, like Valmiki, as I mentioned so many times. Valmiki was a robber, but the overnight transformation that took place in their lives, Valmiki and also Tulsidas, you will find they change overnight. It may seem that without any nurture or without any conscious effort to change their habits, how could these people turn overnight from completely worldly people or evil people? In Valmiki's case, he was a robber. But how one day, one incident changed his whole life and he became the great sage Valmiki? That Swami Shardanji says is explained by the nature that they have inherited. There was a covering of worldliness or selfishness which was covering their true nature. But when the right time came, when the right circumstances were there, they completely regained their old nature. But in this case, it is not like that. It was his constant companionship, relationship with Hridaya, who, though he was very selfish and worldly, always seeking money, but because of his long association, the story of their compare constant, so the transformation due to constant association is what Swami Shardananji has attempted. He says this is a miracle that people of different tendencies, different samskaras, which is a result of so many previous births, that can be transformed in one life or in few years. That is the greatest miracle. So the help of a person who was in one sense a very worldly person, but a worldly wise person. He was not a person who was just selfish, but he was very clever, very shrewd. He was faithful. So there were some good qualities, obviously, otherwise he would not have served Sri Ramakrishna. He was courageous, he used to take all the responsibilities. Even when he became weak, he became ill, it was Hriday who saved his life. He was he even did not bother. He was indifferent to food, his own food, his rest, and other physical needs when it came to serving Sri Ramakrishna. So that enabled him to completely transform himself from an ordinary worldly person to a great saint later on. We'll see that. So the question that Swami Shardanji asked, is it because of his nature, his strength, his physical strength, his shrewd nature, and his capacity or resourcefulness that the Divine Mother arranged for a sevak or a person to serve him? Otherwise, he says, Swami Shardanji says, it would have been impossible for Sri Ramakrishna to preserve his body. He did so much of austerities. He would forget to eat, forget to drink water, used to sit in the Panchavati for hours and hours together. It was Hriday who used to search for his uncle, force him, and somehow push food through his mouth and convince him to eat so that he would survive. So that is why Swami Shardananji says, in though he was a very ordinary person, but because of this wonderful service, because of which the physical body of Sri Ramakrishna could survive, his name would be forever remembered. Whenever people read the biographies, Swami Shardanji says he deserves our heartfelt love and also respect. You will see even later on after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, uh, he, as I told, he was dismissed by Trailokyanath and he suddenly lost the, I mean, he was stricken by poverty and he had to sell towels and other things, go from door to door and sell all these things. Sri Ramakrishna could not help him because Sri Ramakrishna had no resources of his own. He never bothered about all these things. But he was very compassionate, and though Hriday was prohibited from entering they were so strict about that he was not allowed to enter the campus where he stayed for such a long time serving the master. Trailoka was so angry with him, the whole administration was told not to allow him inside the gate. So Sri Ramakrishna used to, whenever he heard that Hriday had come and was waiting outside the gate, he would go and offer him sweets and give him some whatever help he could. He would go and talk to him and very kindly uh, shower his love upon his uh, nephew who served him so much. So Sri Ramakrishna was just about 19 or 20 when Hriday came to Dakshineshwar, and he was 16, as we saw. So, this was the period when Sri Ramakrishna's intense sadhana began in Dakshineshwar. So, because they were known to each other, even in their childhood days, whenever he used to visit his uncle's house uh, at Kamarpukur, Hriday used to, though they were of the same age, they used to play together and they almost were like companions rather than uncle. The relationship between a nephew and uncle was not there. And because of the childlike nature, Swami Shardanji says, though for to outward appearances, the activities appear to be purposeless, they showed some kind of purposelessness and they were like childlike activities. But Hriday did not mind that because he had seen Sri Ramakrishna as a child. Sri Ramakrishna eternally, if you see, his nature was like that of a 5-year-old child. That is why Jesus says, until you become like, pointing to some children on the uh, in the Bible we see, it says, unless you be like these children, the kingdom of heaven will not be open to you. So a kind of childlikeness is very natural with all the saints. And Sri Ramakrishna knew that. And those, you expect a young man of 20 years, which Sri Ramakrishna was, to be quite mature in the worldly sense, but he was just like a child. And Hriday, though he was much more younger in age, I mean, he was 16 years, more resourceful, more worldly wise, he approved of his uh, uncle's behavior, partly because he had seen him as a child and he had seen him grow up and retain that childlike simplicity, that truthfulness. So he knew him, not that he was not aware of the master's spiritual nature. Now and then he would forget and he would even scold Sri Ramakrishna, saying that you are so simple, you just lose all these opportunities. Somebody came and offered him 10,000 rupees in those days, which was like offering crores now. So he simply refused. He went with a stick to beat uh, um, that person who came and offered him that money. He was a Marwadi devotee, Lakshmi Narayan Marwadi. So he was so devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. He seeing his poverty and the other difficulty with which the circumstances in which Sri Ramakrishna was living, he thought of making a donation so that will take care of his physical needs. So he went and humbly offered 10,000 rupees. Hriday was hearing and he was very keen that Sri Ramakrishna accepts this. Sri Ramakrishna, of course, did not hurt uh, Marwadi, Lakshminarayan Marwadi. He told him, "You, why don't you? I don't need money. All my needs are taken care of by these people." And Holy Mother was alive at that time. Holy Mother was living there. So he said, "You can ask her if she accepts. I don't mind." So Holy Mother was, of course, had much more vairagya than Sri Ramakrishna. So she said, "See, even if I accept this 10,000 rupees, I will use it for master service. But if he doesn't want it, then how can I accept it?" This made Hriday furious. He said, "You are letting go of such a huge amount. Somebody has come to offer you 10,000 rupees." So most of Sri Ramakrishna's activities, uh, Hriday thought were purposeless and he used to get angry. But at the same time, his he was very sympathetic. The core of his heart, he knew it was Sri Ramakrishna's childlike nature was because of his spirituality. And that sympathy, Sri Ramakrishna knew, though he used to get angry and sometimes get furious when Sri Ramakrishna uh, refused to do what normal worldly people would do. But still, he was very sympathetic, and that is why Sri Ramakrishna used to appreciate. He said, in spite of all the trouble that he gave me, in spite of all the criticism, all the shouting, and all those things, he was very sincere and he had a wonderful heart with which he served. So, Swami Shardanji says, why Hriday was behaving the way he did. Though outwardly he was very strict and he wanted to dictate how Sri Ramakrishna lived, how he conducted himself. Hriday once told Swami Shardananda, that is what he is now recording. I'll just read what Hriday said, something very significant. He said, from the very beginning, I mean, the day he came to Dakshineshwar, I felt an indescribable attraction towards the master, and maybe it is Divine Mother's will, but he said I was forced to follow him like a shadow, as if that duty was given to him. It was painful for me to be separated from him even for a moment. We carried out all our activities together. We had to part only for a while during the lunch hours when the master would take provisions from the temple store, cook them himself in the Panchavatis, even till he was 25 or 24. It's only later on that he outgrew the habit of cooking his own food. He said he would not eat. Obviously, Hriday and other people who were employed there, they preferred to eat what was cooked by other people in the Dakshineshwar kitchen. Whatever prasad they got, they would eat. But he says only when Sri Ramakrishna decided, the only time they were not together, he was always like a shadow serving Sri Ramakrishna. But only when Sri Ramakrishna used to go to collect his provisions and go to cook, which of course Sridhar did not approve of. He said, when everything is, somebody is cooking for you, why do you do it? So he said, but while eating, they used to sit together and eat. He says he was so strict in observing these rules regarding his food that he had no peace even eating the food he had cooked himself. If it was, and if some rules were broken and somebody had touched or something like that. Although at noon, he says he cooked for himself, at night he would eat luchi, which was offered to the Divine Mother, as we did. Because if you see the Orthodox Bengali custom, it's only rice and other things that are prohibited, but other things made of wheat, like or maida, that is luchi and all, where you could accept from other people's hand. But rice was something which one had to cook oneself. I mean, this was the Orthodox custom. So he says, on many days I saw him eating luchis while tearfully lamenting to the Divine Mother, Mother, you make me eat the food cooked by anybody and everybody. That means he used to take that food because he would not cook at night. But he said, see, you are forcing me to eat food cooked by maybe the people who are cooking it were impure, so he could feel the vibrations. And he used to sometimes tearfully lament. So Hriday has given this information that though he ate food, he reluctantly ate food. So much of importance he gave to the nature of the person who cooked food. So he would say that, oh mother, means he was helpless, there was no other way, he had to somehow satisfy his hunger. So he said, you are made me eat this food. Why have you created uh, this problem for me? So the only thing he could do was complain to the Divine Mother. Sometimes the Master himself talked to us, this is what Hriday is saying, about what happened during that period when he was cooking his own food. Once he said, I was greatly pained because I had to eat the food of an impure person. Even many poor beggars would not come to eat at the Kali temple of Rani Rasmani for that very reason. You see, though there were some beggars, maybe some of them were very orthodox and they also even refused to eat. They wanted to make sure that even bhiksha, which they take, would be cooked by people of good characters. He says even many poor beggars, they had no choice, but they would not come to eat at the temple of Rani Rasmani because the management or the administration was not very strict. That is why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, uh, this was not because he was very orthodox or something. Later on, of course, he would eat from anybody's hands uh, when he uh, when his sadhana period was over. It is only during his spiritual practices, when he practiced spiritual sadhana, that he was very strict. He said many even poor beggars, those who, though they were beggars by profession, maybe they had a few samskaras, they would not eat from the Kali temple, knowing fully well that there were certain cooks who were not, who were of doubtful character. So anyway, because there were not enough people accepting food on some days, that they had to feed the cows, human beings would not accept, and threw the rest into the Ganges. However, we heard from Hriday and the master that he did not have to cook his own food for long. We assume that he followed the routine until he became the priest of the Kali temple later on when his brother passed away, which happened 2 or 3 months after the temple was dedicated. So, Hriday, though he loved his uncle so deeply, he could not understand many things about his behavior. That's what Swami Shantanji says. And the master would disappear for a while when Hriday went to help his elder uncle Ramkumar. In fact, he had come when Ramkumar was still alive. He had not become a full-time pujari. Or during his nap after lunch. Now, this was when he was very performing intense sadhana in the Panchavati. Panchavati was a place which was isolated. No people would visit because it was still a dense forest in those days. A lot of trees, and he used to sit there and meditate. So he was sometimes you would see that Sri Ramakrishna would suddenly disappear. When Hriday went, when they were together, they did most of the tasks together. But when Hriday went to help his elder uncle, that is Ramkumar, or when he was taking a nap, he would find Sri Ramakrishna would be missing. Or even in the evenings, when Hriday had to, he never attended Aarti. That is rather strange. When he did Aarti, he would be there. He was not very particular about attending Aarti. He was more particular about performing his spiritual practices. As I told you, he was not very ritualistic. So when Hriday and all others were attending the Aarti in the main temple, Sri Ramakrishna would sneak away. He found it rather strange. Normally, you would expect a person to sit in the prayer hall, but he would escape. And if he was asked about his whereabouts, he would say that he had been nearby. He never disclosed. While looking for him on some days, Hriday would find him coming from the direction of Panchavati. He perhaps thought that the master had gone to answer the call of nature and did not ask him anything more. He was not aware of the fact that he did not go for any such thing. He would go there just to avoid the company of people and practice sadhana in secret or in solitude. So he found a nice place for himself. It was much later when uh, when Sri Ramakrishna was missing for a long time that Hriday went in search to Panchavati and saw him sitting under a tree meditating. Hriday told us, Hriday gave many, Hriday explained many incidents which took place, which Swami Shardanji was not a witness. So many of the information that we get here in this biography was narrated by Hriday. One day during this time, the master had a desire to make an image of Shiva for worship. We mentioned earlier that during his boyhood days at Kamarpukur, when he was a child, he was very skillful, though he never went to school. He was very good making sculptures. He would take the mud and make beautiful clay images. In fact, the house of Lahas, which was just near their house, there were so many artisans making wonderful statues of clay and then paint them. Even today, if you go to Kamarpukur, you will find a museum where the traditional artists make these statues of different gods and goddesses, Ganesha, Shiva. So Sri Ramakrishna was very much keen and interested, and he himself developed that skill. So one day he had a desire to make an image of Shiva for worship. Since we mentioned earlier that during his boyhood days, Master would perform worship in that way. That was his way of worshipping God, to make beautiful clay images and then offer something. He himself would make the clay images. As soon as that desire arose in his mind, he gathered some clay from the bed of the Ganges and made an image of Shiva with his bull, his drum, and his trident. Everything with all the paraphernalia, he made this. While he was worshipping that image, Mathur happened to come near in the course of his walk. So he was just watching this young Gadadhar or Ramakrishna making this image. Curious about what the master was worshipping so intently, he, of course, after making the image, he would worship it. He drew closer and found an image that was small but beautiful. Mathur was amazed and realized that such a divine image was not available in the market. Curiously asked Hriday where he got this image from and who made it. Mathur was astonished to hear that the master knew how to make images of gods and goddesses and also how to repair broken images. He asked Hriday to give him the image after worship. Hriday agreed and with master's permission brought it to Mathur when the worship was over. Mathur, when he saw the image and scrutinized the image closely and was extremely impressed by what he saw, the meticulous detail, he then sent that image to Rani Rasmani, who was also alive at that time, and she was amazed to see the beauty of that image. So, though Mathur was interested in the artistic skill, and he, of course, he appreciated when Sri Ramakrishna made these different images, but nobody could force him to make these images. If he did, when he was in a particular mood of devotion to a particular god, he would make himself. He would not be compelled or forced to do anything against his wish. So, knowing fully well, he did not want to pressurize Sri Ramakrishna. That is one thing Mathur learned, that Sri Ramakrishna is not someone who can be pressurized by the world to do anything. He was born free, he lived a free life, and he died in freedom. Freedom was one quality that he always held dear to, held very dear, and he had taken a resolve because Mathur knew if I ask him to make an image which I like, he will not do. Because from his childhood, Swami Shardanji says, Mathur had realized or understood that Sri Ramakrishna had firmly resolved that he would not serve any human being but God. So, no human being, however powerful, he knew the wealth or the power that Mathur Babu had and the Rani Rasmani, and they also knew, they were very sensitive to this issue, and never, even though they would assert their power over other worldly people, they would, as far as Sri Ramakrishna was concerned, even right from childhood, they did not want to break his resolve, and they just allowed him to do whatever uh, he wanted. Now we come to the chapter on how Sri Ramakrishna accepted, because employment was a bondage for him. He wanted to do everything free, but as I told you, he only agreed when somebody else took the responsibility of watching or the taking care of the jewels. He did not want to be burdened or pressurized to uh, do any kind of ritualistic worship. He would worship the way he wants, and he landed into so much of difficulty because the priests were Orthodox priests were jealous, and then they pointed out so many defects in his puja, because he was not a person who would perform puja just to please people. He went to Mother, the Divine Mother, whom he worshipped, and he worshipped with his heart the way he wanted to. Every day the worship would take new forms. And you will find so many incidents which show that in spite of his novel way of worshipping the Divine Mother, unlike the other priests who believed in following certain rituals, adhering to certain rituals, we find Sri Ramakrishna worshipping God in a totally different way. And neither Rani Rasmani was the owner, the one who was responsible for building this wonderful temple, nor Mathur Babu, nor any of the people, except for a few priests who now and then used to go and complain. But Mathur Babu just told them, uh, if you bring one more complaint about Sri Ramakrishna, I'll dismiss you. He was so much convinced of the divinity of Sri Ramakrishna, and he accepted whatever mode of worship he chose. So, Sri Ramakrishna, as we know, considered employment to be a kind of bondage, and he did not think highly of anyone who who accepted any kind of work for a salary. So it was really a strange divine coincidence that he agreed to take up the responsibility of the priest. But there were so many conditions that it was not an employment that he accepted. It was not a kind of job that other priests would accept where salary was the main consideration. He was free, whatever he did out of his free will, out of freedom, and nobody even thought, even Mathur Babu, Swami Shardanji says, that they would not pressurize him to do because they knew that he was not someone whom human beings can pressurize to do a thing in a particular way because he was totally independent. He was totally independent, totally free, and uh, depended totally on the Divine Mother for everything that happened in his life. So he was not going to obey in the sense not out of defiance or anything, but he was he abhorred the idea of being in service under someone who would pressurize him to do things this way or that way. So he in the before the proposal came for him to accept this job of the priest, or rather the service of the uh, Divine Mother as a priest, Swami Shardanji says that some of the young devotees who used to come to Sri Ramakrishna, whom he had, uh, on whom he had a lot of hopes, he knew that these people would be great spiritual giants in the future. Somebody like Swami Niranjanananda and Swami Brahmananda and all those people. So when he heard one of those disciples, would be disciples, who later on became great monastic disciples, when he heard that he had taken up a job, he was so sad that he seemed to have made a remark, said, I wouldn't have felt more pain hearing the news of his death than I felt on hearing that he had accepted a job. That was his attitude. Said, how can such a wonderful person, such a wonderful person with such a wonderful spiritual nature, but later on when he understood that he had accepted a job because his family, uh, his father had died and he had to accept that position to look after his elderly mother, then he accepted that fact. So, such a person, Swami Shardananji says, it is very interesting to know the circumstances that led to Sri Ramakrishna unwillingly accepting. See, he was not a person who was looking for a job. This job of the priest of the main temple, Kali temple, the Bhavatarani Kali temple in Dakshineshwar was almost thrust upon him. And what were the circumstances that led to this particular decision of his? Swami Shardamji, almost in 4 or 5 pages, is trying to explain that somebody would not expect anyone to do job with the attitude of earning money. How could he accept this job or accept this task? So to explain that, Sri Ramakrishna's opinion about accepting employment, especially for spiritual aspirants, not that he insisted that every disciple, especially householder disciples, he knew they had to earn a living. So it was only for some selected disciples of his who would become either monastics or would become great saints later on, great spiritual personalities. He was insisting on uh, not accepting jobs. So we find a few incidents mentioned here by Swami Shardanji. That is the beauty of this biography. It's not just quoting different incidents in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. He, though he starts with the birth and the circumstances that led to different things that Sri Ramakrishna did in Kamarpukur, how he came, how his father died. These are all historical incidents. But more than that, he is trying to analyze every incident as if it was a divine play of, just as we find in the Bhagavatam, where Sri Krishna's life is described, no doubt, but there is more a lot of philosophy behind every action that Sri Krishna did or Sri Rama did. Many times we see that they don't follow these great incarnations, they don't follow the worldly conventions. So a doubt may arise in somebody's mind that why they come to break all these laws and why they behave in a way different than normal, what people think is normal. So they may be a creative minority, but still Swami Shardananji says that we should not just say that because they were incarnations or because they were great people, uh, they had the freedom to live like this. There is a logic behind everything that they did. That's the beauty of this biography. It's not just a biography. Every action, as far as possible, Swami Shardananji is trying to show that though there was an element of divinity in Sri Ramakrishna's life, he was intensely human. Otherwise, how could we learn? Maybe many things we cannot imitate because of our weakness or our limitations, but still, he set an ideal for humanity. It is not an impossible ideal that he lived. That is what he is trying to explain. He's taking so much pains to explain that how Sri Ramakrishna was divine at the same time, human at the same time. He was divine. There is one aspect which shows his divinity, but at the same time, there is another aspect of his human side which we can imitate. That is the beauty of this great master or the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, because it requires most of the other biographies. For example, the devotees of Sri Krishna, the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, devotees of Jesus, everybody has written a life which shows that the incarnation whose life they were depicting, they are divine people. They are out of ordinary. There's nothing ordinary about them. Then the question Swami Shardanji raises is, then how can such an incarnation be of some inspiration to us? We want role models, we want icons whom we can imitate. So they have to be not only intensely divine, but they should not be out of reach of human beings. So they have to be intensely human as well. So this is a unique biography where the human side, now and then, whenever he gets a chance, Swami Shardanji will discuss how, like all other human beings, Sri Ramakrishna also struggled. Though the divine nature was in the background, it was his human touch, the way he dealt with human beings in a very humane way, and how we can learn, though we cannot fully imitate or try to emulate what Sri Ramakrishna did, but at least if we know what the ideal is, he says that is the reason why uh, a biography of such a high standard is necessary to be studied. Every line is important because he's not just telling stories. The problem with us that we read the Bhagavata, we read the Mahabharata, we read the Ramayana just as stories. It's just entertainment for us. We never think deeply why Rama did what he did, why he went to the forest, why he broke so many hearts, why did Krishna leave Vrindavan and never came back. We never question. We just read so many stories, enjoy those stories, maybe draw pictures and see some movies or dramas based on Sri Krishna's life without going deep into his life. Such a treatment of any biography of any person, especially avatars, is this is the first time somebody has shown that there are two sides of every incarnation. Whenever they take a human form, it is for human beings like us that they have been born. It's not just to uh, show their divinity. Whereas in most of the other biographies, you will find the devotees are so keen to show that our Rama or our Krishna or our Chaitanya is divine and supernatural, that there is no human side. Even if there is a human side, they'll say it was just a play, it was just something which they try to hide. Whereas Swami Shardanji believed that no, every action, whether it is divine, bordering on miraculous, or the human side, are equally important, because a lot of human beings who are struggling in their own life, dealing with all the different issues, they get inspiration. They have to get inspiration. Otherwise, these people come down to our level. Avatarana means to come down. So, Avatara, the very purpose of Avatara is to come down to the human level and show how a human being has to conduct himself so that he can become divine. So that is why here we'll see the different issues, the issues that we face in the world. When similar issues came in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, how he handled them, how he dealt with them, just as any superior human being, a noble human being would deal with that. Only thing, he was perfect, and other human beings, lesser human beings, may not be so perfect, but at least everybody can try. That is why he says so many arguments, and then based on this, there are questions that are asked that you will find in the gospel, which Swami Shardanji quotes here. He just gives some example from the gospel where these questions are asked by people who are facing these problems, and Sri Ramakrishna gives answers how to solve those problems. So it's not just the answers that he gives and the conversations in the gospel that are important, but also that how these conversations and how these teachings were himself by practice by Sri Ramakrishna himself in his own life. So you have to read to understand Sri Ramakrishna in try to understand Sri Ramakrishna, the purpose of his incarnation and the purpose of his coming to this world is to help that we have to read, not only read his biography but also read his teachings, and that is why we have this alternate class. We don't only focus on the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which are his teachings, which is wonderful to read, but at the same time uh, every alternate Saturday Sunday we make an attempt to discuss something about his life as described by Swami Shardananji, who has combined both the life and teachings in such a beautiful way in this biography that we get a complete picture how an incarnation not only preaches but he practices what he preaches. Like, for example, yesterday I told that Sri Krishna's life was based on anasakti. It was one particular quality that you see is total detachment from everything that he did, whether he's in the midst of a war, whether he's in Vrindavan, he mixes with all these gopis, and the moment he leaves Vrindavan, he never returns back to that place. There is absolutely no attachment of Sri Krishna. Wherever he goes, he becomes one with the situation. And the moment he leaves that place physically, he is mentally totally detached from that. So that is why his commentary on the Gita, which was written by Mahatma Gandhi, he calls the commentary Anasakti Yoga. He found that one of the main qualities of Sri Krishna was his total detachment. He did, of course, Karma Yoga, but Karma Yoga can be done when there is total detachment. The circumstances cannot bind a person down. He behaves according to the situation, according to the time, dealing with people as and when he comes in contact with them. When he was in Vrindavan, he behaved in one way. When he was in Mathura and other places, he behaved in another way. In Gokul, he was another Krishna. But when he goes to Dwaraka, he is another Krishna. And all throughout, if you find, there is this wonderful uh, anasakti or detachment or non-attachment, that would be the right word, which was exhibited. That's why Swami Vivekananda says the main essence, if one has read the Gita properly, in the light of Sri Krishna's teachings, then it will strike him that it was his non attachment that is reflected through all the verses of the Gita. Though there is Bhakti Yoga, there is Dhyana Yoga, there are so many yogas, 18 yogas mentioned there. Each chapter is a different way of approaching God. But if you see everywhere in each chapter, Swami Vivekananda says the idea of non-attachment, anasakti, is central to the message of the Gita. Because that was his life, that was how Krishna lived. With all the war going on around him, he was a picture of calm composure even in the midst of war. That's why he said, I'm not going to fight this war. Neither did he, I mean, of course, he guided because he had accepted the job of a charioteer, but you see, he was totally detached, and though he never was passionate about the war, he was so dispassionate in his whole approach. Wherever he went, even as the king of Dwarka, you'll find that he was, and when the whole Yadavas were destroying themselves, he was just observing. Because he knew that is how destiny will unfold. Everybody will reap the effects of their karma. So, a neutral person, as a neutral anasakta or a dispassionate person, he his life has to be read in that context. So Gita gives meaning to Sri Krishna's life as it is described in the Bhagavata and all other books. But if we read them in isolation, we'll not be able to understand. That is why we have this uh, combination of the great master and gospel. If we don't read them together, at least that should be our attempt to read these books side by side so that we understand the message and the life that lived that message. They all live the message that they give to the world. They just don't speak, they just live what they say. That is the reason why we have these classes. So, are there any questions?
One question, really all these so-called evil persons in this world, will they transform?
What are? Just repeat.
All the so-called evil persons in the world, will they transform?
All the question is rather odd. I mean, whether all the evil persons in this world will be transformed. Yes, if they come in contact, but it is futile to hope that the world will at a particular time be only full of good and no evil. That has never happened. History shows the world, the way the world is, this gross world that we see, is always a combination of good and evil. There may be more in some age, there will be more good people than evil people. Sometimes the balance may change. But if you see right from the days of Kali Yuga, from the Dwapar Yuga and all the yugas, you will find as many good people, there are as many evil people. So it is vain to hope that a day will come when everybody will be good. It is not going to happen. So that is why the solution that most of the scriptures say, that since this mixed world is a mixture of good and evil, in the gross world you cannot expect anything other than that. So the goal of a spiritual person, the solution that they propose, or every religion proposes, is that the kingdom of heaven is not the kingdom of this world. It is the kingdom of the spirit. So spiritual effort means when you transcend this world, transcend the gross aspects of the world, only then you, at the spiritual level, there is this oneness. So that is the goal of life. So it is vain to hope that there will be no evil. All the evil people will be transformed. No, it's not possible. But as I said, when the incarnations come, it's like these evil people get a chance to redeem themselves. That is, some few cases are seen where uh, you may even say that these evil people had some good samskaras of their past lives because of which they came to the incarnation. That also may be true. That is what that is what happens in the case of most of these sudden transformations. But it is undoubtedly seen in the life of every incarnation or prophet that they come to redeem some sinners, some people, and transform them into saints. Om Shanti Shanti